7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Cameron Herold. How you doing today, Cameron?
Good, Ben. Thanks for having me. This is super cool. I love that we're live streaming too. This is great.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And I must ask, what is your story?
Wow, what's my story? Um, I'm just a kid, man. I'm a 16-year-old boy trapped in an adult body who I grew up in a small town in northern Canada I call it a small town, but 80,000 people. I had a father that was an entrepreneur. I had two grandfathers that were entrepreneurs. I was told at a very, very young age that having a job was a bad idea because I had no control over my time, and that if I could run my own business, I would have more free time than I would ever need, and then the money would follow. So we were groomed. My brother and sister and I were all groomed as entrepreneurs, and we all own our own companies today. And I think when I was 21, I had 12 full-time employees. So that's all I've ever known is to be an entrepreneur. And so I guess I started doing that. I ran my own business when I was in university for a few years. By the time I was 28, I had coached 120 entrepreneurs. Kimball Musk, I hired and trained Elon's brother, Kimball Musk, to be a franchisee for me in 1993. I hired his cousin who built Solar City to be a franchisee for me in 93. Left College Pro Painters, which at the time was the world's largest residential house painting company. Left there and helped a friend build a chain of auto body collision repair shops. We built that up to now what is the largest collision repair chain in North America, called Gerber Auto Collision in the US, Boyd Auto Body in Canada. It's about a $900 million company. Left there and I was hired as president of a private currency, similar to what Bitcoin is doing today, but this was 20 years ago. We had a private currency that we had Starwood Hotels, Avis Rent-A-Car, Budget Rent-A-Car, Hard Rock Cafe, Bose Stereo, all using our currency instead of the US dollar. We sold that company to a US public company. And then I was hired as the second in command for a small business that had just turned its name over to call 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And I came in as the chief operating officer for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. There were 14 people at the head office when I joined. Actually, there were 13. I was employee 14. When I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We'd grown to be in 330 cities, 46 states, 4 countries, ranked as the #2 company in Canada to work for, and I was the COO through that trajectory. Left there 12 years ago, started coaching real companies with real entrepreneurs all over the world. I've done paid speaking events now in 28 countries on 6 continents. I've written 5 books that are all on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes, and I started an organization 3 years ago called the COO Alliance, which is the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command. And I guess one of the most random things, we got our company on Oprah 15 years ago. And I also coached a guy who owns the country of Qatar. He's an absolute monarchy and they own the country. So there's some random notes.
So it seems like you've been a bit busy.
I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing because I still wake up every day feeling like that 16-year-old trapped in the adult body. I always still go like, how am I doing this? Like my oldest kid goes away to university in 10 days. I'm like, I don't even know how this is possible. I'm not qualified to raise a child, right?
So I'm curious to learn, you mentioned how you were groomed to really be an entrepreneur. And I'm really, really curious to learn, like, what did that actually entail? What does that mean?
I actually did a TED Talk. It's on the main TED.com site. So if you go on TED.com and look up my name, and it's called Raising Kids to be Entrepreneurs. It was originally, the title of my TED Talk was Raising Kids to be Entrepreneurs Instead of Lawyers, but they edited out the instead of lawyers component. What it meant was I was shown all these little opportunities to be entrepreneurial. This was prior to the internet, right? So you had to hustle. You had to find something and sell something, or make something and sell something, or offer a service and charge for it. But I had about 18 different business ventures that I talk about on my TED Talk by the time I was 19 years old. My first business venture that I remember, my mom came into my bedroom. I was 7 years old. I had the old long telephone with a long extension cord. It was kind of like a remote phone, right? It had a 30-foot extension cord. And I was in my room with the door closed. And I had the Yellow Pages open, which was kind of like Google, but hard copy. And I was phoning all of these dry cleaners. And I was writing down a number beside every dry cleaner. My mom asked me what I was doing. And I said, I'm asking them how much they'll pay me for coat hangers. So a couple days before, I noticed when we were at a dry cleaner, my mom gave them coat hangers and they gave her 2 cents per coat hanger as a recycling fee. Nowadays, they don't even recycle coat hangers, but in those days they did. So I thought, well, if I could collect them from neighbors. So I went door to door collecting coat hangers from neighbors, had a closet full. My mom didn't know. And I was phoning dry cleaners, negotiating, and I got one of them to pay me 3.5 cents. And he wanted to pay 3 and I wanted 4. And at 7 years old, I said, how about 3.5? And he laughed and he goes, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 7. And he goes, fine, I'll give you 3.5 cents. And my mom heard that. She was like, wow, you are truly an entrepreneur. So just, yeah, doing that and cutting lawns, but hiring kids to do it, delivering newspapers, but I would collect the tips and payment, and I paid people to deliver, but I collected the money. So I got extra. Going into the ponds at golf courses and diving for golf balls and getting 100 a day, and then dividing them into 3 categories. The pinnacle and DDHs I could sell for $1 a piece. The average ones I could sell for 50 cents, and the others I bundled in bags of 20 and sold those as, hack golf, just everything. And I learned something from every venture. I learned about handling rejection or upselling or service or tips or trading time for money or, buy low, sell high, or spotting an opportunity. I bought comic books from all the poor kids, and then I drove my bicycle down to where all the rich kids lived, and I set up a tray table. I carried it on my bike with a backpack, and I sold all the comics to the rich kids. So I understood you buy low, sell high, just, everything.
That's amazing.
And and my parents never did it for me. Like if I was going to do a lemonade stand, run your lemonade stand, like make your own fucking sign, sell your own lemonade, pay us for the Kool-Aid that you sold, pay us to rent the table. Right. But they wouldn't stand there doing it for me. They didn't call their friends in. They said, go wave at cars, tell them to come, but they didn't stand there doing it. Right. They showed me and encouraged me and let me learn. And those lessons, I think, really stayed with me today.
And I'm really curious about those lessons, because I feel like so many people are trying to just do stuff, and they're not really like acquiring the knowledge or the specific skill sets or the mindset or mentality that they need in order to be successful.
So one is to journal. Like every day, just open up a journal and write down your notes. What did I learn today? What did I do well today? What did I suck at today? What did I hate doing today? And that kind of reflective observation is part of our learning. There's also a little bit of focus, right? I think people, I want to be an entrepreneur. Really? So why are you sitting watching TV all day? I want to start my own business. Well, are you reading about business? Are you doing anything? Are you shadowing people? Like, get off your ass and go ride shotgun. Every entrepreneur will let you sit in on meetings. If you call them and say, I'm a young kid, I want to run my own business, can I sit in and watch you run 3 meetings today? And sure. You want to sit in, watch me do my coaching calls? Fucking A, bring your laptop, sit here and listen in. But nobody does that, right? Or just the very, very few do. The other thing to remember is being an entrepreneur is hard, right? Nobody pays you. Your hours can be long. You've got everything on the line. We tend to put our identity into it as well. So if we're failing, it makes us look bad. Whereas a normal job, nobody really puts their identity to it. So it's not as easy as people think. It takes work. It takes a long time to get to the night before you become that overnight success story. Even at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we had multiple times where we were almost bankrupt, multiple times, where we couldn't meet payroll, had to borrow money from Brian's mother, had to sell a franchise just to pay the bills, didn't draw salaries for 3 months, didn't claim expenses. There's lots, and people are like, oh, you guys are so successful. We worked really, really hard to be successful. And we would also find a couple of key things that we would obsess about and drive that flywheel. We obsessed about free PR. We obsessed about turning our business into a cult, a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. That's culture. We obsessed about raising our prices to be very high so that we could deliver a lot. Like even my coaching fees today are way higher than the normal coach. I'm $2,700 an hour. right? That's a lot of money for somebody and they have to sign up for a full year for coaching. So, but I can deliver a premium for that. So I think we obsessed about all of those kinds of things in our businesses as well. I think that's what someone starting out has to decide. What do they love? What do they suck at? Where are they really willing to go deep on? And then, and apply all your learning to that too. I think people spend a lot of time learning about random things instead of learning about what they're working on. You know, I'm spending a lot of time right now reading about and learning about business development, marketing, affiliate programs, digital marketing, because I'm really scaling the CO Alliance. So I go to War Room, I go to the Genius Network, I listen to I Love Marketing's podcast, I devour Gary Vee's content, I attend mastermind talks, I attend the main TED conference, so I'm like immersed in learning about the core of what matters, and I don't read anything else or listen to anything else, unless it's for fun. I'm not going to read the next coolest business book because it might not apply to what's really important over the next quarter.
How do you identify that most important thing? Like, how do you bring that, the laser focus, like the work ethic, and really identify what's going to push it forward?
So, and I'm not selling anything, but in one of my 5 books, I co-authored a book called The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. And that book I co-authored with Hal Elrod. And in the book, The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, I talk about a concept called the vivid vision. The vivid vision is what an entrepreneur or a starting entrepreneur or even a person in their life needs to craft. And it's a 4-page description of what their business looks like, feels like, and acts like 3 years from today, or what they themselves as a human look like, feel like, and act like 3 years from today. So I always pretend I kind of get into a time machine and I go out to December 31st, 2022, and I'm going to describe every aspect of my life. Let's just say for us as a person, right? What do I do in my free time? Who do I spend time with? What are my physical activities like? What are my hobbies like? How am I managing stress? What's my diet like? You know, what gives me energy? What am I avoiding and I describe all of those things, not how it's happening, but as if I'm standing there, right? Then once I have that future vision written, that 4 or 5-page description, I can reverse engineer it. I can figure out how to make each sentence come true. So that's the starting point. And then you can start making decisions based on what's going to get you to your vivid vision, right? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And most people wake up in the morning working hard or being busy or learning. But it's kind of like if you got into your car today and you're in like New Orleans and you're going to drive really fast and drive really aggressively, where the fuck are you going? Are you driving to New York? You driving to Miami? You driving to Seattle? If you haven't picked a direction, you're just driving quickly, being busy driving, but you're not going anywhere. Well, you're going somewhere, and that's what most people listening are doing with their life is they're waking up and they're reading a lot, and they're learning a lot, and they're inspired a lot. Where are you headed? Like, do you want to build an offline business? Do you want to build an online business? Do you want to build a speaking business? Do you want to build a real estate business? And forget about like being an influencer. You have no influence until you've done something. We're going to see a massive amount of people getting wiped out over the next few years in the influencer world or in the coaching world, because all of a sudden they realize like they've done shit and they're making 50 grand a year running a business. That's not a business. That's just a job, right? Because a business is something that gives you time where you have the money to buy more and more free time. I take 10 weeks vacation every year, right? I don't do any jobs that are minimum wage jobs. I outsource everything but genius. I have a client that I coach that never fills up his car with gas, doesn't wash his car, doesn't make any meals, doesn't change batteries in his house. Like everything around him that's less than $50 an hour is delegated to someone.
That's awesome.
Well, and it's because he's so focused on what he's great at, right? If you really focus on what you're great at and you know where you're going, you delegate everything except genius. But most people don't slow down enough to think, you know, what am I going to really focus on? Right. Another one is gratefulness. Like, so I've got a 5-minute journal that every day and like scribbled all over it are different affirmations of mine because I follow our affirmations from the 5-minute or the Miracle Morning. So those little habits that you read about, you have to actually do them. Right. A shovel doesn't dig a hole. You got to pick up the shovel and use it. You can't buy a book and hope it works, or subscribe to a course and not follow it. Like even just listening to these great ideas and going, it was so great. Big fucking deal. Like, what are you doing from that?
Makes a lot of sense.
Inspiration is so weak, I think.
So there are two things that, like two rabbit holes I want to go down.
Sure.
I mean, many more than that, but two big ones. One is about that vision and crafting the vision and really putting yourself in a situation where, or thinking about like how big is there a limit to how big? There may be, but like, I truly like, for example, I study a lot of successful people, right? One of the most successful people financially in history is or was Augustus Caesar, the very first emperor of Rome. According to BBC, by the time he died, he had built a net worth of $2.6 trillion, adjusted for inflation today.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's possible, right? But like, how big should we think? Is there a limit? Like,
so, okay, now remember, you've also got to time adjust for core values and what social mores allowed, because he was allowed to kill people and rape and pillage, right? And there was no taxation, and he created a government. So there's a little bit of a difference where he's like an oligarchy in Russia. They can amass wealth when they're criminal. They're like Caesar was in today's world, he would be an oligarchy in Russia, right?
right.
So I think we have to look at like what can a human within, like even a Rockefeller was operating in a period of time where there wasn't taxation like there is today, or you could have slavery, or there was no minimum wage, or you could hire people who could die on the jobs. They built the Empire State Building in something like 420 days, which is extraordinary. But
Yeah.
people died doing it. So you have to build something within your capacity, right, within your own capability, within your core values, within the laws, and within your financial restraints. So yes, we can dream big, but there's also a cap on, is it possible? So I've known Elon for 26 years, for 25 years, Elon Musk. When Elon created the Tesla Model S about 9 years ago, he dreamt for this car that would be as fast as his McLaren F1. So that's why the ludicrous mode is 2.8 seconds for 0 to 60, because he owned a McLaren F1, a $1.4 million car. It had to be sleek and sexy, because that's the models of vehicles he liked, like the McLaren, like his MiG. It had to fit his body size. He's 6'5", he's a foot or inch taller than I am. So it had to fit long legs and long trunk, right? Had to have big headroom and lots of leg room. And behind him had to have enough leg room, because it's a pet peeve for anybody who sits behind me. And then do you know why the Tesla Model S has the 7-seat option? Elon he's got 5 boys, twins and triplets. So if you're going to build a car, it has to be able to seat 7 people, him and his girlfriend and 5 kids, has to fit his legroom, room in the back seat, and be fast. So he dreamt within what he needed, and then he built it within his capacity and priced it accordingly, right? But if you've never, that wasn't his first company. He also co-founded PayPal. He also built Zip2 that he sold for $320 million in cash back in '97. Like, this was his third go round, right? And he had a network, and he had capacity, and he had money. And he didn't even start Tesla; he bought it. Like, it was already existed. So I think people have to dream big within their capabilities, within the money they have, within the laws that exist. And then the gut check is looking in the mirror, going like, "Can I do this? Is it too much of a stretch?" I could go, I'm going to run a marathon in 2.5 hours. Bullshit. Like, I've never run a sub 6 mile in my life, and I'm not going to do 26 of them. Now I could run a sub 4 marathon, because I've run a 4:25. I could easily chop a minute off. Right. Now, I also just found out I have osteoarthritis and I'm not allowed to run again. So my last marathon technically was 3 years ago. I won't run a sub 4. I have to because my capability disallows that. Do you follow?
Yeah.
And right now there's a guy preparing to run a sub 2-hour marathon. He's run one in 2 hours and 24 minutes, 2 hours and 25 seconds is the fastest, like, on a track. So he has different capabilities. He's got money being poured into it. He's got rabbits on bicycles that he chases. He's got like a different skill set. So I think you have to dream big and then gut check against capabilities, core values, the laws, and the money at hand.
I think that's a brilliant framework. And it actually leads into the second rabbit hole, which is how do you legitimately assess your capabilities? Like, how do you find your area of genius?
One is to ask all the people who really know you, not ask them if you can do it, but ask them what you're really good at. Ask them to tell you what you're good at. Like if you've got 5 of your friends who really know you and they go, dude, you're really good at sales. You know, the only reason I started coaching people was a bunch of my old friends who I was in the entrepreneurs organization with went, you're really, really good at teaching entrepreneurs what to do. You're really good at telling them how to grow. You're really good at giving us the shortcuts. Oh, I'm really good at coaching people on how to do things. Huh. And I love doing that. And I get energized when I do it. Huh. That became a unique ability, right? Or people are like, God, I've seen you on stage. You're amazing. Like, again, I've done paid speaking events, over 700 events in 28 countries on 6 continents. That means I'm really good at speaking. Or I just do free events and I don't charge much, you know, like, but I'm really, I had the publisher of Forbes magazine say I'm the best business speaker he's seen in 19 years. And he said it on video. Technically, and I love speaking. So that's a unique ability. There's a bunch of stuff I'm good at that I don't love, that I don't get energy from, that I could be excellent at. I'm excellent at selling, but I fucking hate selling. Right? I'm good at marketing, but I'm only good at it. I'm incompetent at writing emails. I completely suck at writing emails. Like if I sent you a happy birthday message, it would probably piss you off. You'd be like, "Wow, Cameron doesn't." I'd be like, "Happy birthday." You'd be like, "Dude, that's it." So I learned delegate everything except genius, delegate the stuff I'm incompetent at, delegate all the roles that are worth less than a couple $1,000s an hour, which is my billable rate, and then just do the areas of expertise that I love and I'm good at. I think people have to do the same thing. And you'll begin to realize that. And then be okay with the fact that you suck at stuff. You know, the school system really hurt us as individuals. It told us that if we're bad at math, we need a math tutor. No, we need to hire somebody who's good in math. If you're bad in accounting, you need an accounting tutor. No, I need to hire an accountant. I hate accounting. I will always hate accounting. There's people out there that love accounting. I will hire them and I'll get them to make sure, and I'll have somebody check it, somebody who's good at checking accounting, and then I know I'm covered. But I'm really good at speaking and coaching. But if a school teacher was trying to run my business, they'd tell me to get better at accounting. Ugh.
That's amazing. So do you feel like most people have the ability to be entrepreneurs?
No.
And really?
No, I talked about this in my TED talk as well. I think about 3% of the population should be an entrepreneur, and about 97% of the people should be employees. Because I think most people aren't cut out for the hours, the stress, the risk, the financial, the capability, the drive. They can't manage their emotions through it, and they don't have the basic abilities. That's okay. Like it's totally okay. There's a lot of employees who make a shit ton of money and have great lives and careers and 401ks and super happy, right? Being an entrepreneur is not the be all and the end all. You know, I know lots of people that I know a doctor who thinks she's got the best career in the world. I would hate to be a doctor. She would hate to be an entrepreneur. So no, I don't think that. I think there's a little bit of it that's in your DNA, and I think there's a little bit of it that's in your capacity. It's kind of like thing one and thing two. You have to match them both. And I don't think everybody should go off and do it. And I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of people, so yeah, I think a lot of people are doing them a disservice by trying to teach them to be entrepreneurs when they should teach them maybe to be more entrepreneurial, or maybe teach them how to invest their money better, or teach them how to, I think everybody has a capacity to have more wealth and have more free time and work in careers that they love. And take the money they're earning and deploy it in different ways, but not necessarily to go out and run a company and hire employees and build a brand.
That's tremendously insightful.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I do think that everybody has a capacity to quit their shitty job and find the couple of things they love doing and do it for 5 companies and be more like a freelancer for 5 companies. But that's not really an entrepreneur. It's more freelancing your areas of expertise, and it's better than going to a shitty job where you spend 80% of your time doing work you don't like. I think everybody has that capacity. You know,
Absolutely.
go travel around the world and do sales for 5 different companies.
That's brilliant, because I really think at the core of that is that while not everybody is maybe cut out to be an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean that the perspectives of an entrepreneur, or the ways of thinking, or the actions, or the methodologies of entrepreneurs isn't tremendously helpful.
Yes. I think most people should be more entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
Most people should spot opportunities and capitalize it. Most people should work in their unique abilities. Most people should, yes, most people should be more entrepreneurial for sure.
Fantastic. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, and I want to ask about the personal work that you've done to grow as an individual. I mean, what does that really look like for you? What has that transformation been like, and where are you on that journey now?
Um, I'll go 2 areas. I'll start with the business one first because it's easier, and then I'll hit like the hardcore vulnerability third, second. So on the business, it has been coaching, attending mastermind groups, devouring content about what I'm working on and learning that stuff and putting it in place, self-reflective observation and kind of learning on what I've done well and what I could do better and reflecting on that constantly. So I've done a lot on that. I spend about $80,000 a year to be in 4 different masterminds. I spend 25,000 to be in Genius Network, 20,000 to be in Strategic Coach, 12,000 to go to the main TED conference. I go to mastermind talks. I go to War Room. So you add flights and hotels. I'm probably about 90 grand this year on being in those masterminds. That has supercharged my learning. Oh, I go to Abundance 360 with Peter Diamandis. So that's really supercharged my learning and my network. And that's been year after year for about 7 years. I've done that. That's been huge for me. I was a part of the Entrepreneurs Organization for 5 years. So that's on the business side. On the personal side, 19 years ago, I had a nervous breakdown because of business. My mom was dying. I had bought my first house. I was getting married and knew I shouldn't. I was company that I'd sold had just collapsed publicly. We sold for 64 million, but we exited for 3. So a lot of stress kind of magnifying, and my body was breaking down. I had a friend tap me on the shoulder and say, are you okay? And I collapsed on the floor and started sobbing. So I went through a big period of reflection and realized that I had to lose some weight and had to stop drinking and had to get more exercise. So that was really good for me. And then the big personal one was 2.5 years ago. My wife asked me for a divorce and I didn't see it coming. And she didn't want to go to counseling and didn't want to work through it. And everything was my fault. And so I went deep personally, worked with a therapist, did 52 sessions with a counselor, 9 sessions with a shaman, listened to multiple books, and learned that it wasn't actually my fault. There were parts of things that might be, but there was an awful lot that there was 2 people, but I was desperately in love with her. And, in many ways still am. But I had to go through a huge amount of personal growth and introspection and learning to slow it down and to see who I was and what was important. And that's been big for me. And then the last one is just like watching kids, right? Raising children, growing, and that has been pretty big as well.
When it came to working with those trusted individuals, and I know you mentioned the shaman as well.
And I only
Um,
started working with them 3 years ago. I'd never done a single counseling session until 3 years ago. So
well, that I mean, I'm even more curious now. Like, what were some of those roadblocks for you, or those really big pain points that you had to overcome?
one was to learn that not everything is my fault, that there are other people, there's 2 people in everything, and to be okay with actually seeing some other people contributing to the problem. I was always like really hard on myself, and that built kind of a tunnel. One was learning that I was using alcohol, drugs, sex, work as an escape, and to get healthier escapes. one was that it's okay to be vulnerable and to talk to friends and realize that everybody's struggling. Like everyone today is struggling with something. You're struggling with something. You know, I was crying last night talking to my girlfriend about my son leaving for university and how hard it feels saying goodbye to him. Like everyone is struggling and we're all just walking each other home. You know, that on this journey that we're on, everybody's struggling. So for me, I had to learn that I could talk to friends. And as soon as I started talking to people, it was like, these people were like helping me in there and supporting me. I was like, wow, that feels amazing. So much better than drinking a bottle of wine to deal with it. And then I had to learn that there were just these stories that I would tell myself that if I unraveled them, it was my own shit, right? Those stories weren't necessarily true. Or I was worried about worry. You know, I was worried about the future and the future hadn't even come yet. Or I was frustrated, you know, the past is history, the future is a mystery, the present is a gift, that whole thing. So I had to learn all that stuff.
What were some of those stories? Because I feel like a lot of people tell themselves very self-defeating stories, and I'm sure we're not alone in the stories that we believe.
I had one where I was really frustrated with my ex for two things. One, that she spent and spent and spent and spent and spent, and she spent a ton, like a shit ton. Um, but I never said no. I never cut her off. I never put her on a budget. And when I kept writing checks for $22,000 credit card bills, that was equally my fault. Um, that And then I was frustrated that she wouldn't clean up the house. But instead of me talking to her about it and telling her what I just was upset about that. So it would manifest in other ways. And I'm sure she was upset with me on stuff. But if she ever confronted me on it, then I'd get angry, but I wouldn't talk. So I had to learn to talk. And I wish that I could have gone backwards to have talked about those things, because we either would have ended our relationship earlier or had worked through it together as counselors and with counselors and gotten way stronger. So I had to learn that nobody can read my fucking mind and I have to be okay with conflict. I'm terrified of conflict. So I was terrified of upsetting her or saying the wrong thing or making her angry because I didn't want her to leave. Well, it turns out she left anyway. So my worst case scenario happened. And because I was so afraid of conflict, I probably made my whole worse. And a lot of those stories that I almost felt like were our fights were only happening in my head. I don't know what she was really thinking about our fights or me, or so it was that.
It's powerful.
And then there's also the whole learning of like, um, you know, there's two sides to everything, right? Like, what color is this?
Uh, Black, I think.
No, it's not at all. Are you sure? What color? What color is that?
uh, I'm actually partially red green colorblind, so I think that's a reddish with a
Right. But
blue.
no, are you sure? Like, for anybody listening, we're spinning around a phone that on one side is black and on the other side is purple and blue. There's actually a better picture. That's me at Burning Man. But on every side of a story, there's two completely good sides, and I only see black and you only see white, but we're both correct. Because when you flip it, you can see the other person's side. So I had to learn that, and learn that often my frustration was self-induced, and then by me self-medicating or running away from things, I made it even worse.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think I will ever fully understand, because I think everybody has their own um, journey, and that comes with a lot of understanding that is really hard to fully communicate. But I do want to acknowledge you for having the courage to talk about these things, because I think they're very important. So,
Yeah, I've had to learn that as well, that when the checkout clerk asks me, I don't necessarily need to tell her how bad my day is with specifics, but when I'm asked on a podcast or with friends, I can answer truthfully.
absolutely. And I think it's so tremendously powerful for other people listening who, out of the 7, or maybe we're at 8 billion of us at at this time, and however many there are going to be in the future. I'm sure people are going through that too. And I'm curious.
I actually learned that there's 7 billion people right now who would give anything to have my life. You know, anybody listening right now, there's 7 billion people that would give anything to have your life. your house, the food you're going to eat tonight, the friendships that you have, a job, a car, the view that you've got, the whatever, right? The how many televisions in the iPhone, like we're so hard done by. The reality is there's billions of people that would give anything for this.
It's a very humbling thought.
We're all going to the same place. We're all going to die. None of this actually matters. That's the other big one, is none of this really matters. This is just what we do to make money. For real.
So I'm curious on that note. What are your spiritual beliefs?
Um, I believe in connection. I believe in that we're all connected and there's an energy that ties us all. I don't necessarily believe in a church or a God specifically anymore, um, because I've struggled with the science of evolution. So I don't know whether there's a God or the stories that maybe I don't believe in so much of. I don't understand how we can all be here. This doesn't make any sense. It does feel at times like it's a simulation game that we're all being played. Like I'm looking out at a city right now, kind of going like, how the fuck did this all happen in like 10,000 years? It doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. And why there's only one, like of all these planets, there's only one. I don't know. It's weird.
Super weird.
It's super weird. It's super weird. It's why there are drugs. Yeah.
So at this point, and you know that last what we were just talking about kind of touches on it, but what are some of the questions that you have now after doing all this work and making all this progress and being on your journey at this point in time?
I think the
What do
big
you
questions I have now are is how can I enjoy the time that I have left the most without negatively hurting people, and with creating as much of a butterfly effect on those around me as I can as well. Like how can I bump people in the right direction in the best way, in how can I make that mark on the universe and have as much time, because I'm going to die, and it's kind of cool. So I'm not sitting wasting time on stuff, and I'm giving myself a break on stuff, and I'm not beating myself up like I used to as much, for sure.
That's awesome.
Mm.
So, Cameron, I want to be very, very respectful of your time. And I do have one more question for you, then we'll wrap it on up.
Okay.
Um, but what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
I think you might have just asked it, is what am I going to do with my time? Where I normally wrap all my interviews and times is that none of this really matters. And this is just what we do to make money, and like have fun and be a chief energizing officer and go hug the people you love. And like one of my kids just walked in, the one who's leaving for university, and I've got 11 minutes before my next phone call. And I'm kind of going to go and hug him and embarrass him a little bit and just like let him know that I love him and I'm going to miss him and I'm proud of him and I'm scared he's leaving. And um, I think those little moments really matter. Those little moments that they add up. It's like that Jim Croce song, right? Of the time. It's powerful stuff.
Well, I want to thank you again for being willing to talk about these things and for being very courageous and very honest. It's been a very meaningful experience for me, and I'm sure everybody watching and listening. So I just want to thank you very, very much, Cameron, for the time.
You're welcome. I'm glad we had this on record. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Me too. And to everybody's watching and listening, whenever you're watching and listening, I want to thank you all very, very much. Your time is very valuable too. So I'm grateful that y'all choose to share some of it with us today. So thank you. Thank you again, Cameron. And I will see y'all on the next episode. Take care
Thanks,
now.
man. Thank